We haven't recorded in so long. I'm not gonna lie. I don't remember how I do the intro. So, anyway, with that in mind, are you ready to start the show?
Sure thing.
Hey, everyone, and welcome back to One Man and One Woman, the podcast. I am one half of your co hosts, Tara Michelle.
And I guess I'm the other half of your co-host, Flan.
I guess I did remember after all how to do this. Okay, long time no record because we speak often. So
Yes.
tonight, we're going to be talking about a subject that has been a huge topic across the internet and even in our conversations. I don't know what to title this. I think we're going to just dive into the subject matter of leadership in a relationship, and ask a myriad of questions. So, first off, I would like to ask you, when it comes to a man leading, being the head of a relationship, head of a household, the leader, what does that mean to you?
As we talked about this earlier in preparation for this episode, I'm just going to throw a curveball in here. You're going to say I'm being difficult, but if you could
Always.
indulge me, I'd appreciate it. I think this because you already know part of my answers. You can fact check me if I switch up or something like that. But I think for this demonstration, it might be more important to get your perspective on what a male's leadership looks like first.
Okay, well, I will agree with you. I thought about that as I asked you, so I'm glad that you volleyed that back to me. Thank you. I don't think I like being caught off guard though. I wasn't expecting that. I'm usually the one that does that to you. Um, when I think of the man being the head of the relationship, the lead in the household, I think of him being the provider, the protector, the one who is. God, I don't know how to put this into words because if I say him being the brains, I don't actually mean he's the only one that thinks, but it's he's the one I respect and I look to. Of course, he's going to take counsel from me in those areas that I'm strongest, but ultimately, when we move together with him. Again, not walking 10 paces ahead of me, but I honestly don't know how to put this into words. But for me, it's this thing where as his woman, I feel like this is my man. He's the head of the household. He's the person who I look to lead us and guide us and keep us right, whether we're talking financially, we're talking about making decisions in business, where to buy our home, maybe even in all decisions, I look to him to have those conversations with me, us to discuss things, and him to be that leadership. And he does. I'm not my voice isn't silenced by that. I'm not a slave because I want to be submissive. Nothing negative in that. Just that I have a man that I can trust in to be rational and logical and caring and considerate and keep us afloat. And I'm not, I get so scared or nervous in talking about this because I know there's going to be a lot of women out there who go, I can do that. We can do that. I do that every day. Yes, you can when you're single and you're by yourself and you have no choice. But if you're going to have a mate, if you're going to have a husband, let him do that. Let him be the man that leads the relationship. Because in being a leader, of course, like Tripp said, I know I'm obsessed with Tripp from tonight's conversation. He was saying a good leader is going to know to seek counsel from his woman. You guys are both going to have your voices heard in this relationship, and decisions will be made that are sometimes coming from her. But it's about representation. Like when you're out in public and, you look to your man, he opens the doors for you, he pulls your child for you that presentation of just everything I see a man to be. I don't want to go, he's paying, it could be with my card, but I've said this before, like we could be out and let's just say I got it in my bank account and he doesn't. I'm going to give him my card for him to pay the bill the look, the aesthetic of it, but it also has to be more than just the look. It has to really be, I respect my king. I'm going to let him lead, and I'm going to choose the person who should be leading, not just some rando, and we're going to walk in this and do this together. You know what I'm saying? I cannot put it into words what it means to me. It's all about action more so than an explanation.
Okay. And I accept that. I'll say
I
for
feel like
me,
that's the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life. Like I gave birth 4 times, and I think I was less afraid all
and I
four
think
times
that's
than to answer that freaking question.
and I'm glad that it worked out that way because I think that has a bearing on the rest of this conversation. I'll answer the question first. I guess for me, uh, leadership is a service position. If you're in a leadership position, you are in service to those you lead. You are responsible for what happens to them, and therefore you have authority over certain decisions. But you have that authority because you have the responsibility. So wherever that plays out in a relationship, if I'm the man and I'm supposed to be leading, that means that I am now responsible for what happens to these people in this household with me. I'm responsible for their physical well-being. I'm responsible for their spiritual and emotional well-being, and so then that means that certain decisions, I'm going to be looked to make. Like you said, that doesn't create a totalitarian tyrant, sort of environment where it's whatever I say goes. If I care about the people that I'm responsible for, then yes, I want their input. I want to make sure you're comfortable with the decision that I'm making. I want to make sure that you support the decision I'm making. Sometimes we may have to make a decision that you're not so comfortable with, but that as a leader requires me instilling trust in the people that I'm called to lead. And I say all this as like a supervisor at my job. This is what I do every day with my team. My team trusts that I'm going to decisions that are in their best interest. I'm going to make decisions that are in their best interest. That I'm not going to ask them to do things I wouldn't be willing to do. That I'm not going to ask them to do anything wrong. And so because of that, I can instruct and I can tell people where to go and where to be because they believe that I have their best interests at heart and I would never do anything to put them in harm's way. But you have to develop trust to get that out of people. So again, yeah, I think leadership is a service position that puts you in service to those that you lead, and that makes you responsible for them. And with that responsibility, with authority always becomes responsibility. But I actually think the responsibility comes first, and because you have the responsibility of what happens to these people, then you now have some authority in the decision making process. But taking
Okay.
that responsibility seriously, you would include, you know, those people in that decision making process. But I think for what we're going to talk about today, the fact that it was so difficult, for you to put that together is a part of the issue. But I'll let us get deeper into that.
Okay. Thanks.
What was that for?
That I just felt like that answer was super long and kind of repetitive. However,
It wasn't
it's
as
not a
long as your
complaint.
answer.
I just thought, right, but I was scared in mine. Like I was in a full blown panic, so I apologize. But I was waiting to just jump in and ask this question, but you alluded to what we're going to jump into, but it's fine. So, and I'm not going to lie. Sometimes when you're talking, I'm thinking about how much information you're giving in a great answer that I'm not going to be able to put in a 60-second reel. And so sometimes I just want you to stop so I can grab it. I'm just saying, hey, it's one of my favorite things to do. People seem to really resonate. We've had multiple people. I've had multiple people. We just recently had, Hectic tell us, yo, that's what's gripping to me. Brian has said that too. Eric has said that too. So it's a lot of people who like those reels. That's what catches their attention and they come in and they listen. So the first question I want to ask you about all of this is, do you feel that the women of today are willing to allow a man to lead in a relationship?
That's a difficult question. I really don't know what women will allow a man to do. I think the first, and this was the interesting part for me when you were giving your answer. I think the first part in that is establishing for women what that looks like, what that means. Because if you are viewing leadership or a man leading you as barefoot, pregnant in the kitchen, then possibly not. If you believe that that means, he controls the finances and you get an allowance and you get told whether or not you can buy something like that, maybe not. Like, I think we have to establish what leadership really is, you know, to be able to determine whether these, women would be, agreeable to that. I think for what I'm describing and what I believe is leadership, which is not what I think all men are saying when they say they want to be leaders, and it's not what I think all women are saying when when they're talking about men leading. I don't think we're all talking about the same thing. But for what I'm describing, I do think that's something women would allow, that they would appreciate, that some women would appreciate, that being able to defer, being able to take that weight off of themselves and pass it on to someone else that they can trust is going to handle it appropriately.
Okay. Well, for me, I think that today's modern woman is going to have a hard time subscribing to this. There are many reasons why I say this. It hurts me to say this, but I think that there's a lot that comes with allowing a man to lead. One of those first things is being willing to be submissive. So you were telling me today earlier that you saw a reel of a wedding that was happening, and the woman was struggling through the vows when they said, like, for richer or for poor, the therapist or the priest or whoever had to say, hey, we went over this in therapy, and he had to guide and walk this woman into saying these words. And that when he got to obey, she was like, oh, we never agreed to that in therapy. Like, there was so much pushback at the altar in front of friends and family, not a caring a word about being disrespectful to her man, about being embarrassing in front of all their friends, families, loved ones. The whole, even though it's a skit, I know that that is probably a huge thing when people are trying to get married and they're going through therapy or counseling. And that's why you have so many vows, new things being written, and you're taking those things out to love, honor, cherish, obey. I feel like women and people at large put a negative connotation on the word obey and the word submit, or to be submissive, or any of those words that we use in a relationship, which makes me sad. Because listen, like I said earlier when I was talking to you, both sides say the same thing. I believe the man has to say that and the woman has to say it too. So we're submitting to each other. That submission from man to woman looks a little different, I think, but it works in tandem. It works together for the betterment of the relationship. And if we have people saying things like, I don't have to obey, I'm not a dog, I'm not a child, you're not looking at what that word means. And if you're afraid or offended or turned off by the word submit or submission, or to be submissive, I'm not a slave, I don't know what y'all think this is, you might not need to be married. I don't subscribe to this, well, modern day marriage where the women are just teetotally too independent and disrespectful and standoffish and not willing to comply or was compromise on anything. To think that a man is going to want you and to be with you, a man, in my definition. Now, you might find a pansy who will let you walk all over them because you're the breadwinner or what have you, but it's dysfunction to me. So, in terms of the new modern relationship where women want to still be independent and have everything that they want the way that they want it, and not be submissive, not be willing to look to the man to lead, I just see dysfunction, and I see higher and higher divorce rates.
Yeah. And that's why I think, it's important to have these discussions to clear up the idea of what leadership is and what the responsibilities are on both sides. Because there probably are too many men, like we had the discussion, earlier, that are pushing this idea of you should be submissive and I should be the leader, that aren't carrying up, that aren't holding up their end of the bargain, that aren't proven to be reliable leaders. Like I said, trust is number one. Like, you can put yourself in the hands of somebody that you can trust to make good decisions, to protect you, to protect your heart, to protect your well-being, to protect the house. You can do that with somebody you trust. If you want to be a person who doesn't want to be accountable to where they are or what they're doing, or you don't want to do the things that instill trust in a person, then you can't then ask that person to follow you. That's the ultimate display of trust. So I think a lot of it is misconceptions about what leadership is, what these men that are asking for it, are asking for? Do they understand what their part of it is? And what, women that may be turned off to it, do they understand, what the benefits are, what it really should look like?
Yeah, probably not. Because most women, if they learned what submission was, or if they tried to give the lead to a man that they've been with previously, he probably did it so terribly because he wasn't well versed in what it meant, that it left a bad taste in her mouth. You just have so many independent women right now who are used to getting the bag and paying the bills and, doing everything for themselves, that when they come into a relationship with someone, it's hard to let that go. See, we trust ourselves, but when we're talking about my money, you want to get joint accounts, and, I may not have had a chance to see what type of financial decisions you make, or maybe I have seen what type of financial decisions you make, and I don't want to be tied up in any of that. And you have to take the time to go to this person and say, babe, I think I'm more financially literate than you. I think that I'm better with money. I would like to take the time to teach you some things and learn and grow before we merge these accounts. You're like, those are the types of conversations you need to have and the types of things that need to be done. Because to be honest, I don't want even my daughters to walk blindly into something and just say, because you're the man, I'm giving you everything, I'm giving you control of everything, and here you go. Because it might not be the right man. And I know we're moving out of this is what I was saying earlier. Back in the day, it was the woman was just leaving her parents' house. So you had two parent households, and this is biblically speaking, two parents households. You leave your family's house and you cleave to your wife, you cleave to your husband, y'all become one, right? That's not what we're doing nowadays. Women aren't staying at home barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen. There are some, but most of these families cannot live off of one income. So now we have to start to twist things and reroute some things and understand that, yeah, this woman is going to be working with you. So she's working full time, you're working full time. No more of this. She has to do all the cooking, all the cleaning, all the rearing of the kids while she works just as many hours as you do, while you come home and just play the game all day, or you come home and watch sports all day. Like we have to reevaluate based on what life is for us right now. And if you have a woman who's doing it at all, running herself into the ground, and the man is sitting there and allowing her to do it, mistrust. You have all of these things that just go wrong. So currently, I think we need to figure out how this dynamic works in a modern world, because this is not that of the biblical days.
Well, I think one important step we got to take is we need to separate leadership from gender roles. Being a leader does not mean you don't cook or clean, or does not, or being submissive does not mean you're solely responsible for those things. Being a leader does not mean you're the person that should take care of the finances. A lot of leadership is delegation. It's figuring out who in the organization is best at doing this. It might not be me, so then I delegate to that person. So leadership doesn't have to look the way I think a lot of people are describing it, as some like you are giving up all control of your life to another human being and just to the wind now. Like, no, like you said, maybe you're in a situation. I was married to an accountant for 6 years. Do you think it would have made sense as a leader for me to say I should do the budget and I should do the finances and keep the and balance the checkbook? That wouldn't have made sense. That's what she does for a profession. So you delegate, you pass off, you decide who has the strengths where and the weaknesses where. So again, this idea of leadership that may be off-putting, and this idea of submission that may be off-putting, maybe because there's just a misunderstanding of what that really looks like in practice. And we need to have these conversations, as prospective partners, when we're entering into them, so we can understand what that really looks like. It's not as I think the image of that was being pushed by people who didn't deserve it, and then this is why we have this rejection of that concept.
I can absolutely agree with that. So let's talk more about the problem that we see presenting itself with the modern woman. The woman, and I know this is one of your favorite things to hear from a woman, when she says, I don't want to be submissive, or, I'm not going to do that until I meet the right man to make me submit. I want a man that's going to come in here and make me soft. I know that's just your favorite thing to hear. You know what I'm saying? You talk about how happy it makes you all the time. So in dealing with these women, that make those statements. I want to do who's going to bring me into my soft girl era. I'm an alpha female. I do this, I do that. I'm an independent woman, and I'm waiting on the man that's going to come in and make me do this, or the man that's going to come in. Yeah, that's what they say. The man's going to make me come in and do this. Now, with this being the question, I'm going to jump in first again,
Okay.
like I did at first, and I'm going to say that I think that most women really don't mean make me as in force me. I think what we are talking about is I want a man whose energy enters a room, captivates me, captures my attention, and demands and commands without him needing to say anything a certain level of respect and maybe adoration. And I'm willing to submit. Like there's something that he's doing to me that no one else has done. And it penetrates deeply into my soul. And I'm like, yep, it's him. I want to give him everything. And it's going to be hard. It's not going to happen overnight. But, when I think about it and I sit back and I sit with it, I want to give this man everything. There's something about him that brings this out of me. It awakens something, it evokes something, and I'm like, yep, this is the man for me. He speaks to me. I don't think they actually want a man to come in with whips and chains, but with whips and chains and do all of that in a forceful way. And so I think that's where the misconception comes in, where you think we want a man that's going to come in and fix everything. But in some terms, it is. We have been alone for so long, independent for so long, had no father as representation of what a man was supposed to be. Mom made piss poor decisions, maybe grew up with a grandparent, didn't have anybody teaching you. So as a man, we're going to fall back to leadership. If you want to be the lead or the head of the household, if I'm supposed to trust you, you're supposed to protect and provide, then shouldn't you be the one to show me the type of woman that I am supposed to be to fit into that mold? I mean, I hate to put the onus on men, but come on. If y'all were created first and we're your helpmeet, we're the rib, we're your helpmeet, and this modern day and age, when we are not being raised by two-parent households, the Bible and all that other stuff isn't really forefront in a lot of people's minds. Who is going to teach us? We're grown now. The parents missed the opportunity. What do we do?
All right. Yeah, so in that scenario, I mean, I don't even want to go down this road, but we will. In that scenario, like the way you're painting women in my mind with that scenario, that you're just waiting for a man to come along to show you how to be the woman that you're supposed to be. Well, then submission should be second nature because you're not even a complete woman until you find me. So when I step up in here, I'm teaching you how to be who you're supposed to be. Of course, you should submit to me. And that just sounds. I'm saying this as crazy as I'm saying it because the whole thing sounds crazy to me. The fact that you're waiting for me to make you into the right kind of woman, well then, yeah, that's a whole different level of submission to me. Like that's a whole different level. But I think the thing is, I grew up in a single parent household. My father was not there. It was just my mom and aunts and a sister. I was surrounded by women and feminine energy all the time. I'm 42 years old. I cannot go into any situation and tell you I'm the way I am because my dad wasn't around and it was just me and my sister in the house. I'm 42 years old. At some point, I had to decide that I needed to be the man that I needed to be because I needed to be the man that I needed to be. I wasn't waiting to find a woman that was going to inspire me to be the right kind of person or anything like that. Like that just seems like, I think Trip, your dude, said, like, if women took men out the center of their lives, like, what else are you waiting for to be the best version of you?
Well, let's just clear this up real quick. He's not my dude. I mean, in another life maybe, but you mean the person who I like to watch on the videos. Let's clarify that. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, the guy you like to watch on the videos. It's like, yeah, take men out of the center of your lives, and you're like, what are you waiting for to be better? Is this not for you? Is this not for you? And so for me.
Okay, but here's the thing. Let me I have to interject on what you said really quickly. I'm so sorry. But she can be the best version of herself if the man isn't there. And the best version of her may be that alpha female who is very boss like, who comes home and keeps her house clean and does what she wants. And if somebody's calling her or getting on her nerves, she can snap and say what she wants because she's single. That may be the best version of her when she's
Let,
single.
all right, but
What
let me ask you
women
this.
are waiting on is a man to come in and show her and not fix everything about her or show her how to be a woman, but show her what he needs. That is going to ring true for every relationship. Because one man might want you to be a freak 100% of the time. He might want you to talk crazy to him. That might turn him on. So that version of you might be what's good for him. But when you get with this man who is ready to be the head of the household, ready to lead, then everybody has to show everybody what it is they're looking for and what they need in a relationship.
Yeah, I get that part. I guess what I'm saying, one, if if you have this idea that when the man with the right energy walks in the room, he's going to, you know, somehow change you in some sort of way, and that's going to inspire you to do these things, then why ever be with a man who doesn't? Like, why are you in these situations with men who you cannot submit to because they're not that? That doesn't make sense. Just don't do it. Just don't, and that guy will come. The more you settle, the more you separate yourself from what you want. If this is what you've decided that you want, and this is how you can be the woman that you're supposed to be, then why would you ever be in any other situation? And what I say to the other point is, if these are women who feel like they're the best women that they are, you know, without a man, and they don't, if this is a woman who feels like she's her alpha woman energy and she's doing great, but she wants a man, but in the state that she is in, she can't attract the man that she wants, well, then she's not the best version of her. So she's not the best version of her. She has something that she wants that the way she presents herself is preventing her from having. So then I would say she's not the best version of herself. And
Well, again, like I
you know what the
stated
things are.
originally, I think that she might be the best version of herself to get through the life that she has while she's single. You
But
got
it's
to
not the
go
life
out
that
here.
she wants.
You don't have. But again, it's what she has right now. She might want something different. But again, if she had no dad in her life and no example of what it is, to be in a healthy relationship or marriage at all, she is doing what she has to get by, to be successful, to thrive, and she notices that this thing is missing. I don't necessarily want to say she's not going to attract a man. I don't think that because there are women out here who make money, they don't attract men. She might not be attracting the right one. But again, who's going to tell her that? Like, if she's not in therapy because she doesn't know anything is wrong, hopefully the men that she's dating that run across her will say, hey, just so you know, the reason we didn't work out, and this is, again, while I was talking about in a different episode, closure. Sometimes when you can have an amicable conversation with someone that you've been with and they can say, oh, this is exactly why we didn't work out from my perspective. You may learn something about yourself. You were too independent. You didn't want to listen. You didn't want to compromise. You didn't love on me like I want. You didn't figure out what my love language was. You didn't respect me as a man. She's going to have to get this information from somewhere. And I'm not trying to make excuses for people, but not everybody gets on Reddit or Google and says, oh my God, why am I still single? Oh my God, and so everybody's always like, information is at your fingertips. You can find anything out now. If you don't realize you're doing something wrong, if you are successful and your bank account shows it, and you have a great group of friends, you travel the world, you don't know that your independence is intimidating to some men. Or you don't know that you come across like this, and this to some men. So when you meet someone that you like and she's showing you interest and you're interested in her, why isn't it a good idea, or why is it such a bad idea to think that that man can come in and explain to her these things and motivate her to open up, to let go of some of that stuff, to drop her walls and learn from him what it's like to be in a successful relationship and what she needs to change in terms of being a woman willing to submit. Where
I
else are
don't
we
think
going to
there's
get the information from?
that's because that's called living. Like, I'm not saying it's a bad thing for that to happen. I'm saying to wait for it to happen, to know that something, because first of all, you said she wants something different. If you want something different, you have to be willing to do something different. If you're still doing the same things and wondering why nothing's changing, well, then that's your answer. And I don't think that's an answer you got to go to the internet to find. Like, that's just common sense at this point. So you got to do something different. You can't stay in your space and then wonder why your results are always the same. But yeah, if a man can come in and do that for you, that is great. But to say I'm going to wait for that, I know that something is missing. I know that something isn't the way I want it. And my decision is that the right man is going to come along and just fix it. I mean, that sounds like Sleeping Beauty, the damsel in distress syndrome. And that seems like the opposite of what most women want to project.
Okay, so what would you have her do if she doesn't think she's doing anything wrong? Maybe she's thinking, I don't go out enough, but I don't want to meet a guy at the bar. Why is it so wrong to be romantic in that sense and say, you know what, I want to just happen upon that guy? Maybe she gets on a dating app and she's dating, and she meets somebody with that energy and she's like, yes, okay, now I'm open to this. I'm receptive to this. Let's see how this goes. And she tells him, look, I've been an alpha female for, my whole life. This is who I am. This is how I am. You know what I'm saying? Does that work for you? And if he says, well, no, this is what I need in a woman, and she says, okay, teach me, that's a bad thing? Or is that not the ideal situation
But
for a
that,
relationship?
that's
I don't think both people come in just knowing exactly how to be what the other person needs.
right. But that sounds completely different than that sounds like a person who was ready to submit. And then when she got in the position, asked, what does that look like to you? It doesn't look like somebody who was saying, I ain't for this. You're going to have to show me, you're going to have to show me that I should do such and such. Like that seems like somebody who was wholly ready to submit. And again, what I say, I think the people that you hear this from about not wanting to submit or have an issue with submit, I ain't nobody's slave or anything like that, like you said, are either giving those rights to the wrong people and are now hurt, or just have a misconception of what the whole thing is. There's no if you have this ideal that you're going to meet this man and his energy and his everything is going to change you, then why would you ever entertain somebody who doesn't?
I mean, because you have to get to know, you have to entertain them first to know if they have it or not. You got to have a conversation, maybe go out on a coffee
you
date
can have a
or
conversation
something like
a date,
that.
but you don't got to end up in a 5-year relationship trying to justify the reason why you won't submit to this man.
I think
You shouldn't
I
be
think
with him.
sometimes, and I'm going to go back to the rule of 80-20. I think that sometimes, and also there's two things here. I think a lot of times women fall for dudes and their potential. We love to talk about the potential we've seen in a dude, what we know he's capable of, wishes, hopes, and dreams for a better version of what he currently is. The problem when we do things like that, though, is we tend to put our ideas or ideals onto that person, never asking that person, hey, is that actually what you want? Is this who you want to be? Is this what you think you're capable of? So now you've fallen in love with the idea or your romantic fantasy of a person, and they may never have been on board with any of that. The second thing, again, as I was stating, I totally forgot what I was talking about.
I mean, I'll just say as a
No,
as a
don't
man,
mess me up. What was the other thing I was going to say?
are you asking me what you were going to
Yeah,
say?
because I
Once
had
again,
started to
it's the
say it
man's
and then I changed
responsibility to know what you were
Oh,
about to say.
that's not nice. That's not
I'm
right
just
at
saying.
all.
It seems like
But
we
what
putting
was
a lot
the
on
question?
dudes
What
tonight.
what question am I answering right now? We're falling in love, so we fall in love with potential. And what are we talking about right now? What the hell is going on?
I don't know.
You don't know what we're talking about right now?
I know. I answered the question.
What was the question?
The question was so far back there. Like you asked the question.
No, but I mean, you were just, you said, why would she entertain a man who wasn't doing it? Oh, 80-20, 80-20 rule. You were no help. I just want you to know that. That's how I know you don't listen to me when I speak, but it's cool. So the 80-20 rule here. So we get with this guy and he has a lot.
No accountability. None.
He has a lot of the qualities that we like, but there might be some like he may not be good with finances yet. He's a good communicator. The intimacy as well. He's very passionate. He's a loving. He listens to you and tries to show you love in your love language. But again, he's just not financially there. So you don't feel like you can fully submit to this man because you don't trust him with your finances. So that's something that you're working on. So you're entertaining him because he has 80% of what you want, or maybe 60 or 70% of what you want. And you don't feel like starting over from scratch or going to jump over to just a 20 or 30% type of Negro. So you were entertained for 5 years trying trying to help this person grow. 5 years is a lot for somebody not to have shown change, but even a year or two trying to help this person grow and get stronger in those areas where you are strongest. And hopefully he's also teaching you something where you're weakest, where he is strongest. But that's why you'll end up entertaining somebody, because you feel a lot of the energy, just not all of it. And so you don't blindly just take a leap of faith and submit in all ways and risk losing your savings or your self-respect or your house with somebody that you don't know if you could trust them in that way yet.
And that's again what I said. This is a misconception of the idea of leadership. There is no reason why a person in a leadership position would say that the person that better handles money should not be the person in charge of money. That's a poor leader.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that if you're a leader, you're saying you don't say, you don't do nothing, I do everything. That's a bad leader. And that's not what leadership is. And that's
But you
not
have
what
some
submission
men,
is.
because they have a penis, who demand the leadership role, and under no circumstances are they willing to listen to you about anything. And you have women who feel like, I've been told my whole life he has to be the head of the household, I have to let him lead, and will let him lead them into the ground. Again, never seen an example of a healthy relationship between anyone following the words of what the world says we're supposed to do into absolute lunacy. It's akin to a lot of times when Google GPS or whatever GPS would have people turning into rivers. These people see this is not a house or a lane or a road, and they still go their way because they are just following directions so much, and they end up dead or unalived, whatever you can say without getting in trouble on the internet.
I'm
And
gonna need people to be.
and then riding into the water or riding through somebody's house. I mean, a lot of times it's older people who do this stuff, just ridiculousness. But sometimes people are too literal. And even when when everything goes against what their personal inner alarms are telling them and all rationale is telling them, people like you who say it all like diplomatic and make it sound good, that's the voice they hear. And there's no rationale to be had. He's a man, so I must submit. That is a bad version of what we're talking about.
Yeah. So there are wrong ways to do all of this. And like I said in the beginning, the first part of this whole mess is, can we define it? As a woman, can you define what it is? And as a man, can you define what it is? And if the two of you can have that conversation and you all agree on what that looks like, then it's a more agreeable situation for everybody. But I think the battle is men, baby. There are men asking for something that they don't deserve that isn't leadership. There are women who are refusing to be submissive because they have an idea of something that isn't leadership. And if we just we need to clear the air, and it's an objective thing. What I think is being a leader does not mean that has to be with what anybody else thinks is being a leader. This is my opinion, but I think you had that conversation. You understand. Absolutely. What is that person asking for if they're asking you to submit. They might not be asking you to whips and chains and be silent and sit in the corner. They might just be asking you to be there every night and don't put them yoga pants on every place you fucking go. Sorry, my bad. My bad, Grandma Sean. I was doing good. My fault.
I really need you to let that joke go. I'm so tired. They don't care. I can't. However, yeah, I agree with what you said. I think the most important bit of information we've given out tonight is that these things, these topics, you must have with your person while you guys are dating and throughout your relationship leading up to your marriage and even in your marriage. If stuff starts to change for you, you got to be vocal about that. And I think that's the most important thing. I cannot tell you what submission means and what that looks like for you. I can only tell you what it looks like for me. You cannot tell the men what leadership, or the women what leadership looks like for them. We can only tell them what it looks like to us. But that doesn't mean that that's going to work for them. You got some women who absolutely want a dictator or a tyrant as a husband because maybe they grew up in a culture where that's just how that is. And you have some women who want to be the head and the leadership and want to find a softer guy who allows that and believes in like a matriarchy and doesn't have any kind of patriarchal feelings and stuff inside of him. Whatever works for you, whatever floats your boat. Most important key topic here, or bits of information or suggestion, is to talk about it, communicate about it, and make sure you know what y'all want and figure out if you can give that to each other.
I'll finish with this. People, we grown. If any aspect of your behavior, if your response to being questioned about any aspect of your behavior was something about the way you was raised or something about what you didn't see, well then you know what's missing. Go get a book, go YouTube University, go find an old head, do something. But don't just sit and keep telling people you are the way you are because of how you was raised. You know now, go change.
And I 100% agree with that. Beautiful. Well, I hope somebody out there listening to this, can make some changes for the better. I would really like to see us as men and women, especially in the black community, because that's where I'm seeing this problem at the most. If we could just figure out and understand that we aren't really enemies, like we don't really need to be at war, we don't need to fight about every single subject on the planet. We're actually supposed to, be together and love one another. I think it's a sad state of affairs where we are right now, but it's also fun because then we get great subjects that we can talk about on this podcast. But if you're out there, I hope you listen to this. If you know somebody who's like this, those just super duper, I'm just this. I take Vivica Fox. Vivica Fox was this way. This was how she represented herself her whole entire career. And now that she's older, she's doing interviews and she's saying things like, I wish I would have calmed down. I wish I would have been more submissive. I wish I would have, gotten married and had kids. And that's always one of the saddest things in the world to me. When a woman has missed that window of having children, she's in her 60s or 70s now, and she looks back and wishes she wouldn't have did all the stuff that I'm pretty sure plenty of people told her to stop doing. Because now it's too late. There's nothing you can do about that kind of regret. So if you have been listening tonight and you know someone who fits the molds of a dude who's out here asking for leadership and all that other stuff when you know he don't deserve it, send this to him. Share it, like, subscribe. We're on all streaming platforms and on YouTube. And if you know a woman like this who keeps saying, I just can't figure out why I can't find a man, send this to her. Send this out. We have got to stop sitting idly by and watching people that we love just keep making the same mistakes over and over again. So this was very informative. I enjoyed the show. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Last one. And for the ladies that may be waiting for Mr. Right to come and put you in your soft girl era or whatever it is, just know Mr. Right may be watching you right now and how you behaving with the dude you with, and that may be the reason he never approaches you. Be careful out there.
Whoo, boy, you be on fire. That's going to be real. I'm telling you that right now. Absolute fire. And I agree. You never know who's watching you. And that doesn't just go for jobs. So, all right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to us as always. Make sure until next week that you are good to yourself and be kind to others. Holla.
Holla.